Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 204. Today we are talking all about metacognition. Metacognition? What on earth is metacognition? Well, I guess you're going to have to tune in to find out. This is all about how our kids can think about their own thinking, self-reflect, analyze, and advocate for themselves. It's going to be a good one, and it's particularly important for those of us homeschooling neurodivergent children. Okay, before we get started, I just want a quick shout out to CTC Math, our sponsor for this episode and for this season. Thank you for all of the support. We couldn't do it without you, and truthfully, I couldn't teach math without you. I am a grateful customer who just renewed my subscription for another year. Yep, I pay for CTC because I believe in it and I love it. So check them out at ctcmath.com and pop your earbuds in. Let's get on with today's episode. Hey there, welcome back. Okay, so I've talked about, or I've mentioned metacognition before on this podcast, but I've never dived into what it is and why it's so important when we are homeschooling and raising neurodivergent learners. And so I want to do that today. So first, what is metacognition and why does it even matter? Well, metacognition is the thinking about our own thinking, that piece of regulation that we do to kind of like reflect on what we've done, what we're thinking about, why we're doing what we're doing, and the thought processes that go in before we kind of jump to do things. I remember years and years and years ago when my oldest was seeing a psychologist, he had a couple conversations with her, and one of the first things she said to me when we sat down after she talked to him for a long time about lots of different things was, I've never met a kiddo his age who is as metacognitive as he is. He's got a really good understanding of his own thought processes and why he's thinking what he's thinking and doing what he's doing. Now, that didn't always translate to impulse control and acting before he fully thought it through, but upon reflection, he could really tell you what he was thinking about it and why he ended up doing what he did. And so while we wanted him to be able to control his impulses, the act of being able to think about what you're thinking and reflect on what you've done and the motivations therein is really, really powerful and leads to maturity so that as our kids grow and as we as adults grow and mature, we're able to use that metacognition and that reflection to become more regulatory in our own behaviors and our own thought processes. So when we are talking about metacognition, when it comes to raising our neurodivergent kids, it helps us help them become more self-aware, reflect on the things that they're doing and the outcomes of those actions, and then eventually leads to self-regulation. Metacognitive skills are a little bit different from straight cognitive processes because they are not just focused on what's happening around them or what is being taught or the facts or the information. It's more about the thinking that leads to the insights and the understanding and the processes. So it's a higher level piece to the whole thought process that we go through. So why should we care about this? What are the benefits to working on metacognition with our neurodivergent kiddos? Well, when we are able to help our kids focus on their own thought processes and the self-reflection involved with being metacognitive, we're able to help our kids increase their self-awareness. So what that means is our kids are being led to understand their learning preferences, their learning abilities, their learning challenges, what they like to study, their passions, their interests, and their needs. they're able to learn to advocate for themselves when they get into a situation where it's challenging for them, or they know that whatever is being presented is not being presented in a way that is easy for them to manage. I'm going to give you an example. One of my kiddos isn't a strong writer, and that kiddo was taking a writing class and realized pretty quickly into the first couple sessions that they were going to struggle to keep up with the writing in the class when it came to like the handwriting, the paper to the pencil. And when that kiddo had a chance to talk to the teacher of the class, they both realized that they would do better with a tablet or keyboard or some kind of device to help with the actual writing piece, because my kiddo was able to advocate and say, when I write, I use talk to text, and then I go back and I edit on a device. And so the teacher was able to say, well, you can't be doing talk to text in the classroom because it's too disruptive to the other students. But what you could do is bring a tablet with a keyboard or a laptop and type the things that you need to do in class, and then you can use talk to text at home, and the same process. Advocating for one's needs is an important life skill. Not only does it help them understand what they need in order to be successful, but it helps them when they get to potential college classes or other places outside of the home so that they can be successful, and helps them understand that there's nothing wrong with the way their mind works. Their mind just works in a different way, and they might need different tools to help them. And so our kiddos who have attention difficulties or sensory challenges or executive function issues, or may struggle with fine motor skills or any number of challenges, can start to understand how their brain works best so that they can then advocate for their needs and have them met when you're not around as a parent. Metacognition also helps them with self-regulation. It helps them learn to manage their emotions, stay focused in the moment, and regulate their behavior. By reflecting on their own thinking and what happened as a result of behaviors, they are then able to make plans going forward or understand what happened or where the breakdown was. So as they mature, they can make better choices when it comes to reactions to challenges or their focus in a specific situation. And they can put into play a plan that helps them when they come across something that's going to be a little bit more challenging for them. I say to my kids all the time, or kids that I work with, your brain works in this way, which makes it hard for you to do this thing that might seem like it's easier for this friend or this sibling of yours. It doesn't mean your brain is broken or bad or wrong, or that their brain is broken or bad or wrong. They're just different. They're wired in a different way. And so while they may be able to do this particular task in this way, and you may not be able to do this particular task in this particular way, it just means you need to approach things differently. And so by reflecting on your actions and your talents and skills and how you need to do things, you're able to advocate and regulate for yourself in a given situation. And metacognition helps our kids do this as they grow. Metacognition also allows for flexibility. It helps our kids be more flexible in their thinking and their problem-solving approaches. They're able to think about alternative actions or alternative strategies for a given situation because they train their brain to think about how they're approaching situations so that they can then say, oh, maybe I need to approach it in a different way. So how can we support our kiddos and promote a stronger sense of metacognition when we're homeschooling our kids? Well, one thing we can do is we can create a supportive learning environment for our kids. We can make sure that the environment that we provide our kids for learning is supportive and inclusive of whatever their needs are in whatever area they struggle. So if we know our kids struggle with fine motor skills, we're going to scaffold them a little bit more. We're going to be supportive. We're going to let them know that this is more challenging for them. And so we want to make sure that we give them resources and opportunities to strengthen those fine motor skills, but then also accommodate for them. So this is when you're going to use for a kiddo talk to text, or you're going to scribe for them, or you're going to give them strengthening exercises to work on their finger. You want to provide the resources that they need for the specific areas in which they struggle so they can grow and overcome some of those struggles. So for a kiddo who's super distractible, maybe that means a comfortable, quiet area to do their work, minimal distractions, adaptable sensory objects so that they can get input if they need. For years and years and years, we had a mini trampoline in our family room. We needed the constant access to things, resources, pieces of furniture, I guess you could say, to get the wiggles out of some of our incredibly impulsive and physical children. And so we wanted to make sure that we had resources for them. That was a supportive environment for those particular kids at the time. We also want to encourage open communication with our kids so that they know that the environment that they live and learn in is supportive and safe for them to share whatever their thoughts and feelings are in a given situation. We want our kids to reflect with us, tell us what they're feeling, tell us what they're experiencing so that we can talk them through it. I've mentioned this again and again on the podcast. In fact, the night that I'm recording this, I just finished doing a masterclass in a friend's membership community, and we were talking about resilience, and I talked again about communicate. You cannot over-communicate with your family members. You want to make sure you have open communication so that it is a safe place to share for your kids, because those little things that you're listening to now when they're young mean that they're going to come to you for the big and the little things when they're older. And so you want to make sure that they feel safe talking to you. This has way more reaching results or goals or benefits than just their academics. You also want to help foster self-reflection and self-awareness in your kids. So you want to do things like journaling, checking in with them, asking them how they're feeling, telling them how you're feeling, so you're modeling that conversation with them. You're using opportunities to reflect on experiences, whether they're learning or social, that your kids are having. And you want to make sure that you're talking about the strengths that they exhibited in a given situation, and then maybe some of the weaknesses that they can work on for the next time. What kinds of things would they do differently? What kinds of things went well? Talk with them about it. Make that reflection and awareness a part of their everyday. Also, you can teach and model metacognitive strategies with your kids. So these are things like goal setting techniques, right? You can help your kids think about what they're thinking when they're setting goals. One great acronym that people use for goal setting that is super, super good to teach your kids because it's memorable and it's action-oriented is the SMART goal. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Meaning, kids are setting goals that are specific. There is a specific endpoint to their goal. They're measurable. It's something that they can measure. They can see the finished part of it. It's attainable. It's not something that's so out of the way they could never get to it. It is something they could actually achieve. It's relevant. It makes sense in their particular life at their particular time. And it's time-bound. It doesn't go on and on and on forever. Like, I'm going to get to this someday. Helping them set good goals and maybe using the acronym SMART will help them be realistic. And our kids grow in their social, emotional, and metacognitive skills when they feel accomplished. And SMART goals help them do that. So that's one strategy you can use. You can also teach self-monitoring skills to your kids, like evaluating their progress, adjusting strategies accordingly. So evaluating how close are they to achieving those goals? Do they need to reevaluate? Maybe they need to set some baby steps within the main goal because they need a little bit more scaffolding in there. And then help them adjust so that they know this isn't a failure. This doesn't mean that they didn't reach the goals. It just means that they need a little bit more time. This is helping them, again, think about their processes, helping them think about their own thinking. And then finally, we can help our kids emphasize learning from their mistakes by helping to provide constructive feedback and helping them provide their own constructive feedback. We want to help them develop a growth mindset where mistakes are seen as opportunities for learning and improvement and not as failure. When our kids have a fixed mindset, they think that this is all they're going to achieve, that this is all that they're capable of. But when they have a growth mindset, they know they can overcome. They know they can push through, and that any little setback, number one, builds resilience. But number two, is an opportunity for growth and learning. And so we want to make sure that they know that learning from mistakes is a good thing, because that is self-reflective. That is growth. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about CTC Math. I've talked to you about CTC Math all season long, and I'll keep talking to you about CTC Math because not only are they a great podcast sponsor, but it's really a good solution for your kids. If you're looking for a math program that is flexible, it is adjustable, it is something that you can use with all levels of children, check it out. They have a money-back guarantee. This is the thing. I honestly didn't know about this before we subscribed, and when I was talking to the folks over there before this podcast season, they mentioned it to me, and I was stunned because what they said was, even if you get through the entire year and you don't feel that your child made the amount of progress that you feel that they should have made, there's a no questions asked refund policy. They don't want you to be unhappy. They don't want your kids to be unserved. They want your kids to have the best math foundation possible so they can go forward in whatever it is they want to pursue. So all you need to do is give them a call and explain to them why it didn't work for you and what you felt didn't work, and they will give you a complete and total refund. Seriously. Those are some people of integrity. I had a problem a couple of years ago that it was a total problem with my kids, and I reached out. I said, I can't figure out how to do this with my kiddo, and they hopped on a call and helped explain it to me so I could explain it better and break it down because my kiddo was stuck in this one section. Their customer service is phenomenal. They want everybody to learn math. They truly, truly love math. They love what they do, and they believe in their product. So check them out, ctcmath.com, or go over to the show notes page and click on the link, or in the description for this on iTunes or wherever you're listening to your podcast, you should be able to see a clickable link and check it out because we really, really appreciate them. And like I said, we love them. All right, let's get back to today's episode. And so we want to help by providing specific feedback to them so that they can be specific in their own feedback and self-reflection. We want to highlight areas of improvement and suggest alternative strategies, maybe things that they could have done differently, because our goal as a parent is to help them grow into those strategies. How do we individualize this for our specific kiddos, right? Our kiddos are neurodivergent. They could be gifted, twice exceptional on the autism spectrum. They may have sensory processing challenges. They may have anxiety or any number of different things. We want to make sure when we're working on metacognitive skills that we're taking in their neurodivergencies into account so that we're recognizing and respecting their unique strengths, their interests, and their learning styles. So when we're teaching our neurodivergent kiddos metacognitive strategies, we want to adapt them to accommodate the specific challenges that they might be facing. So if our kiddos struggle with attention and focus, we want to use visual supports, right? We want to make sure that we're showing them and we're demonstrating them. So maybe if we're working on those SMART goals that I mentioned in the previous section, we are writing out a chart that lists the acronym SMART, shows what each of the letters means, and then provides an example goal that's written using the SMART method. Maybe if our kids are kiddos who rush through things and don't take their time, we're giving them checklists and things like that so they have a visual, physical cueing system in front of them so that they can make sure that they're checking all of the boxes. Maybe we're talking them through it because their fine motor skills make it so that it's very tough for them to write things. So we're having more discussions with them and conversations. We're adapting our strategies to the specific kids that we have, meeting them where they are and moving them forward. For a kiddo who has ADHD, we might want to teach strategies like breaking tasks into smaller steps or using timers for better time management. For a kiddo who rushes through things, we might want to make a list, like I said. Another idea for our kids is if we have a kiddo who gets overwhelmed when they walk into, say, a messy room. I've used this example before. Maybe we give them one step at a time. We say, hey, go in and bring me all the dirty laundry, and then check in with me. And we make it a game. And then we give them the next step and the next step. When my kids were younger and we needed to clean the house, I'd write lists on the board, the whiteboard in our kitchen, because we were, stereotypical homeschooling family who had a whiteboard in our kitchen. And we'd write down all the things that we had to accomplish that day, house-wise. And I'd say, okay, go choose something and go do it. And then it was a race to get through as many things as we can and to get back to the whiteboard before somebody else took the task we'd rather do than another. So if your kid is motivated by novelty, maybe you're building in some novelty to the activities that you're doing. For a kiddo who has autism, maybe a visual schedule or a checklist for organization is something that will work for them. Maybe, like some of my kids, color coding your calendar and having a calendar in multiple rooms of the house, including a calendar that's digital, so that they can cross-check between the digital calendar and the calendar in my office and the calendar on the refrigerator to make sure that they know what's coming up next. For a child who struggles with dyslexia, maybe you can encourage the use of assistive technologies or alternative reading strategies. One of my kiddos, the one who struggles with dyslexia, uses our Echo Dot to spell when she wants to write stories. She sits next to the dot and asks Alexa to spell words for her. One of my kids used graphic novels and audiobooks liberally when he was learning how to read. We adapt our learning techniques for our kids, and we show them how they can adapt the things that they need as well, so that they know it's not a failure to have to ask Alexa to spell. It's a method of advocating for yourselves and meeting your own needs. Finally, one of the things that we really need to make sure that we're doing when we're working on metacognitive skills or any other kinds of challenges with our neurodivergent kids and we're homeschooling them is we want to make sure we're collaborating with professionals. We're seeking support where we need it, or we're just collaborating with other parents who have kids that struggle in the same ways that our kids do. So we want to make sure that we consult with others if we get to a point where we're struggling to meet their needs. Now, people ask me all the time. In fact, I taught a live class in a friend's membership community about resilience in families. And almost every time I teach anything like this, the question comes up about testing. And I've mentioned it before. So we'll link to a couple podcast episodes where I talked about testing. But in a nutshell, if you get to a point where any of these neurodivergencies become challenging for you and you don't know what to do with your kiddo next, support, therapy, resources are beneficial. We have seen child psychologists in our days. We've seen physical therapists and occupational therapists, among other resources. So if you get to a point where you're struggling to figure out what's going on in your kiddo's mind, and your kiddo maybe can't tell you what they need or how they think about the things that they're doing, it might be a time to work with a therapist, work with a specialist, work with an occupational therapist, and find somebody who can support you in whatever challenges that you're having. Share your observations with them. Seek advice. Implement the recommended strategies and report back to whomever you're working with. Here's the thing. The best therapists, the best counselors, the best psychologists that you could work with view you as part of a team, and you view them as part of a team. You are all on the same team to help meet your kids' needs. So if you ever feel like the person that you're working with isn't seeing you as a teammate and sees you maybe as a bother or an impediment to the child's needs, you need to find somebody else to work with. They work for you and they are part of your team. So you want to make sure that you're all sharing observations and strategies with each other and you're reporting back to each other what's working and what's not. It's super important to be on the same page as the people with whom you're working. It's also important to connect with other parents of neurodivergent kiddos. So you want to make sure you're joining homeschooling groups or parenting groups that have kids who struggle with similar struggles so that you can bounce ideas off of each other, because it truly, truly helps when you know you're not alone and you have the opportunity to talk to other families who have kids just like you. So if you can, find resources local to you so you can meet one-on-one with a parent or in a group and your kids can meet with other kids who are just like them. That's not always possible. We're raising outliers. We've talked about this before, and sometimes you can't find other families in your local area that have outliers just like you do, and you continue to feel alone. And that's where online groups come into play. There are many, many groups on Facebook and other social medias that you can join to connect with other families like you for free. There are other resources that you can connect with for a small fee. So you're working with other families like yours and you're getting the support of others who have been there or are professionals. I've talked before about the Learners Lab community. I love it because it's exactly what I would have wanted when I first started homeschooling my own kids, and I wish that I had had this resource. I also love it because it brings together families who have kids like mine, like yours, and the kids get a chance to chat with each other in a kid space that we have that's built on Flip, and parents have a chance to flip through resources, pour through the archives of all of the master classes and family challenges and creative thinking classes that we've done in the past couple of years in the community. And the best part of the parenting community is that you have access to me and you have access to each other. So you can ask questions and get them answered by others. And I'm in there every day answering questions and responding to DMs and pointing people to resources and creating resources based on conversations that are in there. It's truly, truly a beautiful community of growth where we're building together stronger families. My absolute favorite part of the community is the group coaching, the Q&A that we do each month. Every single month we get together, parents on screen, and I answer every question that came through the intake form. Even if that takes us 3 hours, we just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk about all the questions that you have, and we bounce ideas off of each other. And all of those recordings are in there and in a searchable database for families. So find groups to connect with, whether it's our group, the Learners Lab, or other groups on Facebook for free, websites, podcasts, social media profiles. Find other families who are focused on homeschooling and neurodiversity to help give you guidance and support, whether that's mine or somebody else's. But find resources that you connect with. Engage with ongoing learning. Attend workshops, webinars, conferences to help you learn ways to tap into yours and your kids' metacognitive skills to help them grow in strength and resilience and reflection and advocacy. The bottom line is metacognition and metacognitive thinking are so important to all individuals to grow in resilience and self-esteem and self-worth and to be able to tackle anything that comes their way. But it's particularly important for neurodivergent families because we as families and our kids as individuals come across so many different challenges. And by understanding how they're approaching and what they're thinking about when it comes to those different kinds of situations, they know how to help themselves in the different situations that they come into contact with. Again, whether that is growing their own businesses as adults, attending college, meeting new people in a play or a rehearsal process or a new class that they're taking. Metacognitive skills give them the opportunity and the resources to draw from so that they can be the best versions of themselves. We are raising kids who are going to take on the world. They're going to be the ones who change the world, who bring about new and innovative resources. And we want to make sure that they understand their own thought processes so that they can tackle those big challenges. And homeschooling them, we're giving them the tools right now to be able to do all these things. You're an incredible parent raising an incredible kid, and I'm so proud of you. There are all sorts of resources over on the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast that can point you to resources related to metacognitive skills, including the self-reflection and the advocacy pieces, as well as executive function skills to help them grow in these self-reflection ideals. So hop on over there. If you know of a family who would benefit from this conversation and in teaching their kids executive function skills, self-reflection skills, metacognitive thinking, then share this podcast episode with them. Better yet, if you've got time, go over to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating or review, because it really does help get the podcast out and get the word out to others. Share it on your social media. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to be back next week talking all about how we can incorporate a more multimodal ideal of learning in our homeschools. Okay, so what does that mean? I'm going to talk about it next week, but it's all about how we can incorporate more learning styles into our homeschool so our kids can be using their bodies, their minds, their hands-on learning and touching on all different ways. So quick example, when we ride a bike, we remember how to ride a bike forever because we're using our brains, we're using our eyes, we're using all of our senses, we're using the physical. We're going to talk about how to incorporate more of that in our homeschooling. So come back. It's going to be a good one. I can't wait to talk to you about that, but more, I can't wait for you to have a great week with your kids. Go on some adventures, enjoy them. You have amazing kids and you are an amazing parent. I'll talk to you soon, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.